Hi, and welcome back to another day here on Journey Back to My Truth. I'm doing my year of gratitude where I am making it a point to thank somebody every day. Um, so my grandpa passed away. It makes me really grateful that I am doing this because I was prompted to write that thank you for them that I don't know if I would have, and I sent that last week. So at least I got to tell them that. But it's just so hard. So I wanted to talk about grief a little bit today. I lost my dad in a tragic car accident. It's been, 2015, so 6 years ago now. And the one thing I can tell you is grief changes you. The other thing I can say is there's no right or wrong way to do it. Also, if you're dealing with somebody who's lost somebody, don't avoid them. Don't avoid bringing it up. I think that was one of the things that was the hardest for me after Dad died, is I just missed him so much, and I would want to talk about him, and everybody would just change the subject because I guess they were scared of making me sad. But the thing that really made me sad is when it felt like the world just forgot he had existed. I had this incredible man who raised me, and nobody ever talked about him. And we're never truly lost or gone until the last person who has memories of you goes. Until then, you live on. So by people sharing stories, they live on. So dealing with my grandpa passing, the man was in his 90s. Just incredible salt of the earth guy. When it comes to family, I won the freaking jackpot. Seriously, so incredibly blessed. He and my grandma had 8 kids, and each of those kids had kids. So I've got cousins coming out the ears. And he's a farmer. So, I grew up on the farm helping in the summers, and just a good Christian man. And he had been suffering for a while. Thankfully, he never lost his mind. We're so blessed. And he died in his home. And that is a tribute to my mom and my aunt and or aunts and uncles, who all, because 5 of the kids all lived within, 10 miles of my grandparents. They never moved far away. So those kids were able to help and have provided all the care for my grandparents after my grandpa got really sick, and kept him out of a nursing home and allowed him to die at home, which is incredible because he was actually born in that house. He was born in the back room. He was the youngest, and when it came time for him to take over the farm, there were no other kids at home, so my grandma moved in, and they built a little house next door, and my great-grandparents just moved next door, and so my grandpa has lived in that same house his entire life. So for him to be able to be cared for there and die there is just, it's an incredible blessing. So, they talk about the different stages of grief. I don't know that you really go through them literally. I know with Dad, I went from denial I kind of skipped over. Anger, sadness, acceptance, then back to sadness, then back to anger. Like I kind of flip-flopped all over the place. And I'm told that that is not atypical. The other thing that I learned is that grief isn't something you get over. Loss isn't something that you just heal from. You just kind of learn how to live with it. And as you go about your days, you learn how to move on with your new normal. Because after you've had somebody like that in your life and then they're gone, you're never the same. And that's not necessarily a bad thing or a negative. It's just what it is. It's just a fact. And I had seen a little like cartoon or meme one time where they were talking about when you have loss, it kind of puts a hole in your heart. And they were talking about whether or not you can function with this hole in your heart. And basically over time, your heart just grows to accompany it and you can feel love again. But that wound just never goes away. It just kind of becomes encased in part of your story. And I really feel like that's true. I was very raw when my dad first passed. And grief brain is real. It's absolutely real. You forget things. It's like pregnancy brain. You forget things. You can't think right. Like, it so truly affects so many parts of your body. And I think to honor that is very important. Now with the loss of my grandpa, obviously I knew this was coming. I don't think it makes it easier. I really don't. My dad's death being a car accident was extremely sudden and unexpected, and oh god, that was like a punch to the gut. I actually don't remember how I reacted. I think I screamed and fell to the floor. I remember the phone call and hearing that my dad had died. And the next thing I remember, I'm on the ground just sobbing. So I'm not sure what happened in between there. With my grandpa, knowing it was coming, at least you get your chance to say goodbye. At least you get your chance to come to peace with it. But it still sucks. It still sucks. And then I go through different feelings like, I'm such a baby. I'm in my 40s and still have my grandparents. Like, that's crazy. I am so blessed for that. I guess it's kind of like those people who don't feel bad for rich people. Like, oh, well, you've had it so fabulous in your life. You should just be happy for what you have, and you're not allowed to have problems. Well, let me clue you in. Even though I'm in my 40s, losing my grandpa still hurts. So I don't really think, just because you've had time, it doesn't hurt. I do look at my poor kids who have no grandpa, because my father-in-law passed away a couple years ago, and my dad passed away 6 years ago. So my kids were all little or not yet born. So they never even got to have a grandpa. And here I am with one for 45 years. So that's another lesson that I've learned through all this stuff in life, is just because somebody has it worse than you doesn't make what you're going through less valid. We are all entitled to our experiences and what we're dealing with, and we are all entitled to have the pain and have that acknowledged and validated. Nobody's life experience is more important or valid than anybody else's. And the other thing that I've really learned is that we should all treat each other with kindness, because you have no idea what anybody's going through on a particular day. I just remember when my dad died, there were times where I was sitting at a stoplight and a song came on the radio that reminded me of him. I'm just sitting there bawling at the stoplight, and I miss that it turns green, and somebody behind you is laying on the horn, which jerks you awake. And people are like screaming at me because I missed the light turning. Well, I'm sorry, I'm dealing with a lot right now. Or there were times when I was trying to count change out at the grocery store, and your brain just doesn't work right. And I was just struggling with change, and people are getting impatient behind me. You know what? The extra 5 seconds, because that's really all the difference is, about 5 seconds. The extra 5 seconds, I doubt is going to make that much of a difference in your life. But I promise, if those people had shown kindness to me and patience with me when I was going through that difficult time, it would have made a huge difference in my life. And so I always try to practice that now, to have patience when I see somebody struggling, because you have no idea what somebody else is dealing with. We all have our demons. No matter how privileged we are, we all have our demons we're dealing with. And I don't think minimizing because somebody else has worse ones is fair. So that's kind of my take on the whole thing with grief and just being kind. And it does really suck, because I am struggling right now with whether or not to go to the funeral. I know that a lot of COVID has settled down compared to what it was at the worst, but there's this, the Delta variant going around right now, and I literally have family flying in from all the corners of the United States. There's from Washington, D.C., from Texas, from Washington, the state, not to mention just people in their daily lives. And me having 30-something cousins, and then my mom and dad, or my mom, her family, she's got, I think she said 50 first cousins. So if even a fraction of the people show up, plus my grandpa was very loved in the community. So there's going to be literally hundreds of people here. And my kid was just in the ER again 2 days ago, and she has major brain inflammation going on, like major. And if she were to get COVID, who knows what that would do? It's such an unknown. So I really feel like the best decision for her is to stay home and not risk exposure. But the idea of not being there breaks my heart. So I'm just struggling with that. So, anyway, as far as my gratitude for the day, I don't know why it's so hard. This whole gratitude thing, I really thought it'd be easy because, I'm blessed, blah, blah, blah. Some days it's just really hard. It's a serious exercise to try to bring myself back to that place of gratitude. I don't feel like going really deep today. I don't feel like doing something really, really heartfelt. The funeral director was the same funeral director who did my dad's funeral. And he was actually extremely gifted. I mean, my dad was actually in a car accident where he was hit by two, not one, but two trains. That might be a story that I share another time. And we were able to have an open casket because that man is a miracle worker. So, just a thank you to him and how he supports the families, I think would be appropriate today. So, anyway, that's it for today. Not so short and sweet, but I think that's the other thing. I wish that people would talk about grief more. I wish people would talk about loss more. It's taboo in our culture, and I wish it wasn't. Because when we go through losses and we share, I mean, that's kind of what the whole human experience is about, is sharing. So hopefully this will start a conversation for you or something to think about. And we will check in again tomorrow. Till then, try to choose joy. Bye.